mic, computer. We've reached the 4:30. I'd like to call the Fitchburg Fire and Police and Fire Commission to order. One of the things, we have a quorum, 4 members being present. And one thing I meant to have on here, but I think we can simply do it. Let's take a moment of silence to remember those who've kind of passed in this last year of COVID. Important to remember them. Okay, thank you, everyone. Appreciate everyone staying safe. Appreciate we're able to do this. I guess we'll monitor, on a month-to-month what the city's policies will be to keep everyone safe. So at this point, we'll do it this way. Second order of business is approval of the minutes. Is there a motion? Okay, Rosa moves. I assume you're moving approval? Okay. Is there a second?
I can second.
Okay. Any discussion or corrections? Not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I think I checked in with Sarah for number 3. There are no public appearances for any non-agenda items. So if there are, anyone on, let us know. Item 4, report of the police department. Chief.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you are all doing well. And ideally, we're moving out of the deep freeze that we've all been in the last couple of weeks here. So I'll keep things moving along, knowing that Scott has us on a strict time frame today. Here's the staffing report that's been shared with you. And you can see that we did pick up a vacancy since our last meeting. There was a resignation submitted by one of our police officers who has taken a job as a sales account executive in the area. Sarah and I have met with this employee and conducted an exit interview and received some feedback from the employee. So that has created a vacancy. We also have 2 officers currently in field training, and 2 officers remain on extended leaves or restricted duty. So we have a total of 5 patrol positions that are currently not filled. And as always, you can see the retirement age eligible folks and the demographics of our current staff listed as well. Any questions about the staffing report?
I guess the only quick question I'd have is, I assume that with the 5 unfilled, you're able to make that up with overtime?
Actually, that has not affected our ability to at least meet our minimum coverage expectations. Now, obviously, I will state that those are sheer minimum numbers. And, if we have to do overtime to meet those minimums, we will. Or if we have any sorts of incidents or situations that take place that would require us to staff above the minimums, we'll certainly do that via overtime. But by and large, we're actually meeting or exceeding at least our minimum level of designated staffing around the clock. And, ideally when these folks move through the field training process, that'll help. And as we get folks off of leaves and those sorts of things, that will also help our situation. It might actually allow us to do more proactive outreach and specialized assignments and those sorts of things that we haven't been able to do.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's important to kind of know what, various staffing levels allow for proactive work, because they can make a big difference in preventing problems.
Yeah, and absolutely with COVID, we've certainly been hampered on our ability to do outreach as well. So it's something that I'm hoping that as we move deeper into 2021 here, we're able to get back to doing a lot of the outreach that we've been able to do in past years.
Okay. Any other questions on staffing report? If not, the hiring process update.
So at our last meeting, Sarah, I'll just briefly jump in here and then turn the floor over to you on this one. At our last meeting, we talked about a conditional offer being extended to an applicant in our last hiring process. That offer was extended, and unfortunately, that individual declined our offer and has elected to wait for an offer from another agency that they were an applicant for. So we have officially, for all intents and purposes, closed out the process that wrapped up at the end of last year, or in January of this year. And then, of course, we are now in a hiring process currently, and I'll turn it over to Sarah to provide any updates on where that particular process is at this point in time.
Yeah, so we have right now only about 61 applicants for entry level and about 7 for lateral. Both positions closed on the 22nd. So we still have some time, but this is right in line with our last recruitment where we had, it was about 67 entry level and about 8 lateral. So this is really looking quite just like the fall recruitment that we had late last year. So we'll just kind of keep plugging away, spreading the word. I know we're doing some kind of new looking Facebook social media post that Ned has put together. It looks really great. Quotes by officers in the department. So just trying our best to, spread the word and let people know we're hiring.
Okay.
So obviously, once the application process closes, we'll conduct the steps as approved by the PFC recently, and look to have recommendations to the Police and Fire Commission for candidates in the April meeting.
Okay, good. Welcome, Jim.
Any questions related to the current hiring process?
Oh, Rosa does. Rosa?
Go ahead, Rosa.
Breakdown of the applicants, the demographics so far?
Yeah, I can certainly give that to you. One moment here. So if we're looking at the entry level position, if we have about 10 candidates that identify as female and 51 that identify as male. And then if you look at the ethnicity breakdown, 43 of the 61 are white and the remaining are people of color. 10 Hispanic or Latino, 3 Asian, 2 that identify as Black, and then 3 that identify as other or multiracial.
How does that 67 number compare to prior years, roughly, Sarah, from a trend standpoint?
Yeah, so we've had hundreds of applicants in past years. We just looking at the last couple of years, we at least always made over 100 applicants, but looking at our past probably 3 or so recruitments, it's been, we're lucky if we get 75 applicants.
Hey, Sarah.
Yeah.
Have you had contact with Madison PD to see how their application, or maybe Chad, to see how many applications they're getting compared to previous years? And I apologize for being late to the meetings.
All good.
I don't have firm numbers. I don't know if you do, Sarah, but just in informal conversations with members of Madison PD's command staff, what I'm hearing is they're trending right around 500 applications at a time, which, years ago, my understanding is they would get a couple thousand applications at a time. And from a historical perspective, Tom, probably 5 years or so, Tom O'Day, probably 5 or 6 years ago, we'd get 200, 250 applications. Within the last few years, it started to drop down to right around 100 to 125. And then within the last year, though, we've basically been trending between 70 to 100 applications. So it's definitely not the direction we want to see our application pool go in. I'm sure it's indicative of a number of factors out there right now. I think it's important that our police officers feel supported, and those that are choosing to enter the field. I think it's important for those folks to recognize that there is support for the work that the vast majority of police officers are doing every day, and that can definitely have an impact on the numbers that we see.
Thanks.
Anything else on the hiring process, an update? If not, you want to talk about, Town of Madison hiring process discussion?
Yeah, I'll certainly do that. So as you guys likely know, the city of Madison, city of Fitchburg, and the town of Madison have all entered into a cooperative agreement in 2002 that will lead to the dissolution, or the town dissolving, for lack of a better way of saying it, in that a portion of the town, approximately 3/4 of the town, will go to the city of Madison, and approximately 1/4 of the town will go to the city of Fitchburg. That is set to take place in October of 2022. However, it's likely, due to a variety of reasons, it will be necessary for at least supplemental policing coverage to be provided to the town in advance of that, if not other considerations to be made. But the purpose of this conversation is to talk about a hiring process that we've been discussing with the city of Madison. What we're looking at doing is a joint hiring process for any of the current town of Madison Police Department members, sworn members that are interested in one or both departments. And what we'd be looking at doing is, again, trying to do as much cooperatively as possible to help minimize the number of steps and locations that the town police officers would have to go to in order to participate in these processes. So, for example, if there's ways to consolidate the panel interview into one panel interview, I'd like to do that. From a chief's interview perspective, I've already offered to Madison PD that I'm happy to travel to a location that's convenient for them, so that we could host chief's interviews in one location on the same day and allow the town officers just kind of a one-stop opportunity there to interview with both police chiefs. So right now, what our tentative timeline is looking like is that we would be allowing the town police officers to submit, and this process would be solely for town police officers. Would begin by receiving applications. They'd be due in April. We begin with looking at interviews in early May, backgrounds and those sorts of things in mid-May to late mid-June. Coming to the Police and Fire Commission here in June with an update on where we are at, and then potentially looking at extending tentative offers at some point, tentatively around the early part of July. So there's a couple of things that we're looking to do with this. Again, first and foremost, neither the city of Madison nor the city of Fitchburg will know what, if any, additional positions will be approved from a budgetary standpoint for the town absorption until after the budget process goes through in November of this year. So any of the tentative offers that could be extended by either department likely would not have a start date until after January 1 of 2022, after both communities have had a better idea of what funding, if any, will be provided for additional positions that both departments are requesting. So what the goal of this process is for both communities to identify what the town applicant pool looks like, and if there are good cultural fits for both of our organizations, and then also to provide the town police officers that are seeking jobs with one or both municipalities an early answer as to whether or not they will have a spot offered to them or available to them after January 1 of 2022. That way, for those that are not selected by either department, that also gives them time to weigh their options, and if they are going to stay with the town PD until the town is dissolved, or if they would like to seek jobs elsewhere. So that's the tentative plan at this point in time. And what I'd like to do as a result of this meeting is, if you guys as a commission are comfortable with the tentative information, I'll continue my work with the City of Madison Police Department to firm up the steps in the process, and then come back to the commission in the March meeting and request approval to proceed.
Questions, comments, Rosa? You're on mute, Rosa.
What are the areas that we're gonna be annexed to Fitchburg? from the-
Yeah, and before I answer that question, Rose, I will also add, the way the agreement with the three communities is structured is, I don't believe I'm not aware of any obligation for Madison or the city of Fitchburg to, that we're obligated to hire any of the town employees. So, the town employees would go through a hiring process just as if anyone else would. The main advantage for them is it would be a process just for them. No one else would be involved in that. No other applicants would be involved in that process. And we obviously be looking to try to streamline it between the two departments as much as possible. Go back to your question, Rosa. The areas that are currently planned for incorporation into the city of Fitchburg are the Zimbrick dealership properties on North Fish Hatchery Road at Greenway Cross, and then the Southdale neighborhood, which is basically bounded by Rimrock Road, the Beltline, and Highway 14. That would be approximately 1,500 residents in the town of Madison would become Fitchburg residents.
Chief, what's the total number of officers that are potentially, did you mention the number?
I think there are approximately 6 officers or so that have expressed an interest in either Fitchburg or Madison. And then there are some officers who have expressed that they wish to only work for the city of Madison.
Okay. So there's 6 overlap then. And it would include more than just patrol officers, any sergeants or lieutenants?
Any sworn member that is interested in continuing their career with one or both departments would be eligible to apply. I think the town has informally surveyed their employees and have an idea of who is seeking jobs versus who is not, and who is interested in Madison PD, who is interested in Fitchburg PD, and who is interested in either PD.
Okay, are there other, go ahead, Jim.
Chad, you're saying that I thought you mentioned that the interview panel would be combined with the.
That's something that we are talking about is looking to potentially combine one oral interview, that first round of interviews that we typically do. I've been talking with Madison PD to see if there are ways that we could potentially do that. You know, for instance, could the questions be formulated by both departments for this particular process? If we don't necessarily have someone physically sitting on that first round of interview panel, could we have somebody or multiple people observing the interviews via video conferencing? You know, those sorts of things, so that we, you know, at least get an idea based upon the responses to the questions, either in person or via video, you know, where that candidate might be.
Okay, thanks for that answer. Because the only thing I would be kind of concerned about is that community member. You know, I mean, it got to be obviously someone from the Fitchburg community, and how would that actually work? And again, you brought up the questions, and I think that's also important.
Yep, absolutely. Well, we're going to try to work out those details between now and the March meeting of the Police and Fire Commission. And I agree with you, Jim, that it's still important for us to have a community member from Fitchburg involved in the process. And again, I don't know if that looks, you know, like perhaps we work out an arrangement that they physically sit in on the interviews with any of the Madison panelists, or if we look to try to incorporate them in, you know, remotely. So, but definitely I'm committed to continuing to have a Fitchburg community member involved in the process, regardless of how we set it up.
Okay, Rosa? You're on mute, Rosa.
Mute. If you are going to do this together, how do you decide? Let's say you have a candidate and you're both interested in that candidate. Is that something that could happen or no?
Well, it could, of course, happen that, you know, if we arm wrestle, I'm probably in trouble for the candidate. But, you know, ultimately, if a candidate is interested in either department and both departments offer, they're going to have the choice. You know, I see how that's, I don't know how else we would do that, you know, just because we know that they have an opportunity from both departments, and, you know,
I guess if you didn't hold it jointly, they could apply to both and make their own decision anyway, right? So,
Correct.
yeah, so I don't
Right.
see the huge difference in that regard. How many positions are we talking about for Fitchburg? Do we have any? I know that you haven't asked that of the council, and the council hasn't made those determinations, but do we have?
Well, we know we need it. We know we're going to request at least 3. That's the number that's been provided to the city all along, of at least 3. Also knowing that we have existing need within the police department to address the current growth of the city of Fitchburg and the workload. So that number of 3 could certainly be more than that. And that's also, preliminary in that after we're doing more, we become more familiar with what's happening in the town of Madison, the area that we're getting will require or necessitate additional or just additional personnel due to growth of Fitchburg.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jim.
What is the current ratio that you're trying to maintain for police officers?
Well, ideally, we would maintain a historical 1.8 officers or sworn department members per 1,000. I believe that I would clearly prefer that to be a bit higher, but right now we're trending at, depending on what you use for your population. If you use the DOA estimate, I think we're closer to about 1.65 or 1.7 per 1,000. So the trend has been lower over the last several years. It has not maintained with the growth of the city of Fitchburg itself.
Okay. Anyone else? If not, I guess what I'd recommend, Chad, is yes. Why don't you, work with the city and bring back a process for us to approve at our March meeting. The one thing I would want to make sure is in that process, though, is that you and the PFC have the ultimate control over who's hired or not.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. All right. Anything else? If not, I think we're ready for closed session. We need to have a motion and read the statute and approval. Okay, go ahead, Tom.
Tom, go ahead, Tom.
I will move that pursuant to section 19.85 sub 1 sub C Wisconsin statutes, the commission will move into closed session for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, more specifically to remove the probationary status of 2 officers and notice the commission of a resignation.
Okay, is there a second? Those are seconds. Okay, all those in favor of going into closed session, we need to have a visual or some affirmative action saying, voting aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody against going into closed session? Okay, if not, we're in closed session.
And back in, go.
Okay, thank you. We're back into open session, and at this time, let's take up items that may have been discussed in closed session. Rosa?
I move to accept the recommendation of our police chief to remove the probationary status of Officer Megan Paskey and Officer Logan Enke to regular employee status.
Okay, there's been that motion. There's a second. Jim, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the removal of the probationary status signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, well, thank you very much. And we appreciate the process of the probationary period and the removal. So it's a good evaluation period. Okay, report from the fire department.
Could I make a recommendation to move to closed session real quick based on our time frame? And then if we have time to be able to cover the other reports?
Sure. Based on that recommendation, everybody, is there unanimous consent to move to 5C, closed session? Is there a motion?
Yes, I'll motion to do that.
Okay. Second by Rosa. Okay, let's somebody read the statute so we cover that, what we're going to cover, so that you know.
I'll read it.
Thank you.
Pursuant to section 19.85, parent 1, parent C, Wisconsin's statutes, the commission will move into closed session for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. More specifically, to make hiring recommendations for a paid on-call firefighter.
Okay, so there's been that motion made in second, in discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and so affirmative action. Okay, we're in
Aye.
closed session. Thank you.
Go.
Okay, the commission is voted to come back into open session. Items to take up out of the closed session.
Yes, I moved to accept the recommendation of Chief Pulvermacher to offer a conditional offer to the top 6 candidates off the fire department's eligibility list, pending a background investigation, and to keep the remaining individuals on the list as eligible for hire.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Jeff seconds. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Thank you, everyone. And then go ahead, Rosa.
For the record, make sure that it shows that I
Recuse yourself, yep.
recuse from this one. Okay.
Very good.
And then quickly, I apologize, but we do have one firefighter by the name of Don Sparby. He's been with our department over 18 months. He has completed his task book. He has recently gone through EMT school, and I am recommending that he is accepted as full-time status paid on-call firefighter.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept that recommendation? I just one thought is, you know, in the future, I think we want to be able to take up so we can have discussion in closed session on some of these. So.
Okay, so his name.
And I guess maybe we should hold off until next. Just the way the things are at right now, we're already past our time. You know, we could. I'll ask. You know, Sarah. You know, I guess it would seem prudent to just hold this off until next.
Yeah, we'll get it on the agenda for next time, since we probably shouldn't vote on anything if it's not on the agenda. So we'll do that the next one.
Right, that's just what I was thinking as well. And
do you mind if I table the rest of our items until our next meeting? I can bring up the progress on those other items.
Yeah, let's ask unanimous consent that we table the rest of our items and that we, because of the city's concerns right now with the time, with the other meetings, that we adjourn or make a motion, but we definitely take these items up at our next meeting. Okay, is that unanimous consent? Everybody agree? I think we still probably should make a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Okay, a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay, thank you, and thanks, Scott. Sorry we ran a minute or